He wanted me to say I was wrong, even when I wasn't. Before we begin, please like, subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Let's all be internet friends. You're not listening to me. Mark's voice was already sharp, even though the room was quiet. I hadn't raised mine. I hadn't even finished my sentence. I heard what you said, I replied. He stepped forward. No, you didn't. You always twist it. I said I didn't think that option made sense. And that's exactly it, he interrupted. You always think you're right. I folded my arms steady. I just don't yell. He laughed once without humor. You think that makes you better. No, I said, it makes me clearer. That's not how communication works, Alina. You don't just get to drop your opinion like it's fact and then go quiet. I met his eyes. You asked me for my opinion, and you gave it like a robot. I didn't respond, he paced once. You never just say you're wrong, even when you are. I stayed still. I wasn't wrong, I just disagreed. He turned, hands in the air. See, there it is, that wall, that tone. That measured thing you do like you're some damn therapist. I was trying to be respectful. No, you were trying to be superior. I stepped back. Mark, not everything I say is a strategy. Sometimes I'm just speaking. Exactly, he snapped. You're always just speaking, never listening. He walked off, muttering about how exhausting it was to talk to someone who never owned anything. And I stood there, wondering how staying calm had become the loudest insult in the room. You don't even cry. That was his follow-up the next night. We were sitting on opposite ends of the couch. I just finished explaining why I didn't feel safe raising concerns anymore. He waited until I was done, then leaned back and said it. You don't even cry, Alina, not even when we're fighting. I stared at him, so that's not normal, he said. Most people get upset. Most people show something. I do, I replied. You just don't see it. Right, he scoffed. Because it's all internal, hidden, like you're immune to feeling anything. I looked down at my hands. I'm not immune. I'm exhausted. He folded his arms. Convenient. I blinked. What does that mean? It means every time we talk, you're calm, collected, composed, like you're performing neutrality. I leaned forward. You punish me when I get emotional. You say I'm being dramatic. You say I'm escalating, so I stopped. That's not what I meant. No, I said. It's exactly what you meant. You want me emotional enough to feel real, but not enough to be threatening. You want proof that I care, as long as it looks like weakness. He stood up, frustrated. You don't get it. I stayed seated. No, I do. You equate emotion with apology. And because I won't cry on command, I must not love you enough. He didn't deny it, just left the room. And I sat there, dry-eyed, tired of being told my silence made me cruel. You're the common denominator. He said it while folding laundry like it was just another observation. Socks in one hand, accusations in the other. There's always something with you, he said. Every week a new issue. I didn't look up from the book in my lap, because I'm always the one apologizing. He laughed under his breath. So now you're the victim. No, I said calmly, I'm the pattern. He turned. What's that supposed to mean? It means you only ever stop to reflect when I agree I'm at fault. If I stand still, you call me unaccountable. He dropped the shirt on the chair. You think you're so composed, so evolved. But maybe that's the issue. You don't feel anything unless you're right. I closed the book. I feel everything. That's why I've learned to measure my words, because every time I speak without apology, you turn it into an argument. You're twisting this. No, I said, I'm identifying the loop. He stepped forward. Say what you really want to say. I want to stop being sorry for not falling apart on your timeline. He went quiet. I stood, walked to the bedroom, left the door open. Not as an invitation, but as proof. I wasn't storming out. I wasn't slamming anything. I was just done folding, done making peace through surrender. And this time, I wasn't cleaning up the mess he made with his pride. Ray noticed first. We were sitting on her balcony, feet up on mismatched chairs, 2 glasses of wine between us and a half-melted bowl of olives we both kept forgetting to eat. She watched me talk about something small, I don't even remember what. Maybe the way Mark had corrected me mid-sentence in front of the waiter. Maybe how he sighed when I used too many commas in a text. Whatever it was, I smiled while I said it. She didn't smile back. Instead, she asked, when's the last time you felt relaxed? I blinked. What? In your body, in your mouth, when you talk. I looked away. I'm fine. She leaned in. No, you're not. You brace before you speak. I stayed silent. I've seen you walk into rooms softer than this, she continued. Now it's like you're always editing mid-sentence, like you're rehearsing while you talk. I shrugged, it's just easier. She nodded slowly, to be tolerated. I swallowed. She said, that's not love, Lena, that's performance. I'm not performing. You are, she said, because you know the cost of saying something the wrong way. I looked down at the wine. If I say things too plainly, I'm cold. If I say them with too much feeling, I'm irrational. So you try to say them perfectly, she murmured. I nodded. And he still finds a flaw, she added. I looked up. Her face wasn't judgment, it was grief. Because she'd seen me light up once. And now, I flickered. Mark accused me of performing. It was during an argument about nothing, maybe where to eat, maybe something I'd said too neutrally, too gently, too well. I don't remember the start, only what he said after I paused too long before answering. You practiced that, didn't you? I blinked. What? That whole explanation, he snapped. The tone, the pacing, you rehearsed it. I stared at him. No. I spoke clearly. He laughed. Exactly. Too clearly. No one talks like that in real life unless they're trying to sound smart. I was trying to sound calm. Bullshit, he said. You were trying to win. I folded my arms. Win what, Mark? He took a step forward. You always prepare, always plan your words like you're building a trap. No, I said quietly. I plan my words so I don't step into one. That made him pause. I added, you've trained me to explain things with precision. Because if I say the wrong word, you don't just disagree, you dismantle me. His jaw tightened. Now you're blaming me for being articulate. No, I said, voice steady. I'm blaming you for demanding apologies you don't earn, and calling it communication. He shook his head, muttered something I didn't catch. I didn't ask him to repeat it, because I already knew what he thought. That clarity was control. That composure was manipulation. That any woman who didn't stutter must be scheming. And in that moment, I realized. He didn't want honesty, he wanted confession. Natalie showed up uninvited. It was a Saturday afternoon. I just finished vacuuming, phone face down, pretending the apartment was clean enough to silence the noise in my head. The knock startled me. She walked in the second I opened the door. You look like you're holding your breath, she said, setting her bag down. That's not normal. I didn't argue. She dropped onto the couch, legs crossed, eyes locked. You told me he was passionate. Then you said he was just misunderstood. Now you barely speak when you're around him. I leaned against the counter. He's just intense. She nodded. Exactly. I waited, she said. He needs chaos to feel in control. You give him peace. That's why he hates it. I exhaled. It's not that simple. It is, she said. He doesn't want partnership. He wants obedience. He wants a reaction he can correct. A feeling he can name so he can fix it or blame it. I sat down across from her. She added, you think staying calm is saving you, but it's not. It's just delaying the crash. I swallowed. I don't know how to leave. I didn't ask you to, she said. I just came to remind you, the problem isn't your delivery, it's that he demands your surrender. Silence. Then softly, she said, you're not broken. You're just being bent so often you forgot how to stand. And in that stillness, I realized I wasn't safe, just practiced. The fight about groceries wasn't about groceries. It started in the kitchen, fluorescent light, 2 shopping bags on the counter, and a brand of pasta he didn't like. He pulled it out, held it like proof. You never listen. I stayed by the sink. You didn't tell me which kind to get. I shouldn't have to, he snapped. We've talked about this. No, I said. You mentioned once 3 months ago that this brand was meh. You never asked me not to buy it. He tossed the bag onto the counter. You always have an answer. I have clarity. He took a step closer. Don't do that thing where you stay calm and make me feel crazy. I turned to face him. You feel attacked because I didn't read your mind. He pointed at the pasta. It's not about this. I nodded. I know it never is. He stared at me. I continued. It's about you needing me to be wrong, even when I'm not. Because if I'm wrong, then you're justified. Then you get to react instead of reflect. Jesus, Alina. You say I don't listen, but what you mean is, I don't bend fast enough. I don't apologize for things that don't require one. His fists tightened. You're twisting my words. No, I said. I'm finally not letting you twist mine. The silence was thick, but I didn't fill it. Because for once I wasn't afraid of the fallout, I was afraid of the cycle. Gavin stayed after dinner. Mark had invited him over like nothing was wrong, ribs in the oven, music low, laughter that didn't quite reach his eyes. I played along. Set the table. Smiled on cue. We barely spoke during the meal. After dessert, Mark got a call. Said it would be just 5 minutes. Left the room. Gavin and I sat in the quiet. Then softly he said, "He's always been like this." I looked up. The way he talks when he's threatened, it's not new, he continued. He did it to our mom, to exes, but with you. He paused. You look tired, Alina, different. I stayed silent. You used to be vivid, now you're measured, like you've got a script. I folded the napkin in my lap. He says I rehearse things. Gavin's brow furrowed. Do you? No, I just choose my words carefully. He nodded, because if you don't, he'll use them against you. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. He sat back. I used to defend him. Thought people just didn't get him. That he was intense, not cruel. I glanced at the hallway where Mark was still on the phone. But now I see it, Gavin said. You didn't make him worse. You made him uncomfortable because you don't yell and you don't cower. You just stay still. And that threatens the hell out of him. I swallowed. You deserve more than surviving someone's moods, he added. And in that moment, I finally believed it. She recorded the session, not for proof, not for revenge, just to hear it back. To make sure she wasn't imagining things. Ava had asked, Mark, can you reflect on how your response may have impacted Alina? He leaned forward. I just think it's manipulative when someone stays calm all the time. Like, how is that even real? Ava waited. Can you describe what you needed in that moment? Mark shrugged, a real emotion. Not neutrality packaged as control. Alina had stayed still, so if I cried, it would have felt real. Mark replied, at least then I'd know you cared. She'd looked at Ava. Do I have to bleed to be believed? Mark laughed. That's dramatic. Alina said nothing else for the rest of the session. Later, alone in the apartment, she played it back. The room sounded colder in the recording, every pause longer, every interruption sharper. His voice carried, hers barely moved. It wasn't just the words, it was the rhythm of dismissal. The way Ava's silence filled the gaps where boundaries should have been drawn. When the clip ended, Alina sat motionless, because hearing it out loud stripped away every justification she'd layered on over time. Every maybe I was too distant, and maybe I could have phrased it better. It was all there, on tape, and it had always been this way. Just never that clear. He walked out mid-session. It wasn't a blow-up, no yelling, just a long, simmering silence after Ava asked a question he couldn't redirect. Alina, she said, has expressed that she doesn't feel heard during conflict. Mark, what do you think contributes to that? He leaned back, arms crossed. She never says how she feels. She just outlines events like she's writing a damn report. Ava nodded once. Is it possible that's how she protects herself? He scoffed. No, it's how she avoids being vulnerable. Alina, Ava asked gently, is that true? I looked at Mark, then back at her. I stopped being vulnerable when it kept being used against me. Mark stood, see, this is what I mean. Everything she says is curated. Ava tilted her head, or maybe it's just careful. There's a difference. Mark muttered, this is a waste of time. He grabbed his jacket, walked out. The door didn't slam, it clicked. Ava turned to me. You're not hard to love. My breath caught. You're hard to manipulate, she continued. There's a difference. I swallowed, unsure what to do with words that kind. She leaned forward. You've been translating yourself for so long, you forgot clarity is not a flaw. I looked down at my lap. You're not cold, Alina. You're surviving precision. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel like I needed to defend my calm. I just let it settle. Dean confirmed everything. It was an offhand comment not meant to cut. Just one of those slip-ups that happen when someone assumes you're still in it, still defending him, still willing to smooth things over. We were at a mutual friend's birthday. He passed me a drink and said, Mark told me you use logic like a shield, said it makes him feel small. I stared at him, he said that. Dean shrugged. Yeah, he said you make everything sound like a debate. Like he's always on trial. I nodded slowly. Did he mention what I'm usually responding to? Dean hesitated. I don't know, I think he just feels outmatched. I took a sip, by clarity. Dean looked uncomfortable. He said you never crack. I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. That's because cracking meant handing him the win. Dean didn't speak, and he didn't have to. Because that was the moment I finally understood. Mark didn't want conversation. He wanted confirmation. He didn't want dialogue. He wanted dominance. He needed me to break so he could feel whole. Dean shifted his weight. I probably shouldn't have said anything. No, I said, you should have. You just didn't expect it to land like truth. He nodded once, said nothing else, and I walked away with no rage. No tears, just the cold clarity of hearing my reality spoken aloud by someone who didn't even know they were holding the knife. The final argument was over dishes, or so it seemed. I'd left a plate in the sink. One. After a long day, after folding his laundry, after taking a call with his insurance because he didn't feel like being on hold. He stood at the counter, arms crossed. This is what I mean. You always say you're organized, but you pick and choose. I looked at the plate. It's one dish. It's about the principle. No, Mark, I said, turning toward him. What is this really about? He didn't answer, I pressed. Is it the dish, or the fact that I don't over-explain anymore, that I don't apologize on autopilot? He scoffed, you always win, that's what it's about. I blinked. Win. You always have a response. A reason, you never just admit when you're wrong. Because I'm not wrong for leaving a plate in the sink, I said. And I'm not wrong for speaking clearly. He stepped closer. You sound smug. I sound sure. He laughed bitterly. Exactly. And there it was, not the dish, not the tone, the truth. He didn't want an equal. He wanted submission disguised as harmony, a soft yes wrapped in silence. I picked up the plate, washed it without a word, set it on the rack, dried my hands. Then I looked him in the eye and said, if me standing tall feels like an attack, maybe you've only ever loved me when I was on my knees. He didn't follow me when I left the room. She didn't flinch, he yelled, loud, sharp. The kind of yelling meant to pull a reaction out of her, to shake something loose, to scare her into the shape he missed, the quiet, agreeable version. But she didn't move, not when his voice cracked, not when he stepped forward, not even when the glass hit the wall behind her, a wine glass not aimed, but close enough to make a point. She stayed seated, calm, spine straight, eyes clear. He stood above her, breathing hard, waiting. She said, do you want me to scream, or do you want me to submit? His mouth opened, closed, she continued, because I won't do either. You're so damn cold, he spat. No, she said. I'm done being cornered into emotional theatrics, just so you can feel like we're engaged. He turned away, fists clenched. You think silence makes you stronger. No, she said, it makes me free. He slammed his hand on the counter. You're unbelievable. And you're exactly the same. He didn't answer, she stood slowly. Walked past him to the hallway, her steps soft but final. No tears, no apology. Just a woman who'd learned that some men confuse control with connection, and when you stop feeding that confusion, they call it betrayal. But she didn't flinch. Because this time, her stillness wasn't fear. It was clarity. Natalie helped her pack. She didn't wait for an invitation. Just showed up with a stack of boxes and a look that said, you don't need to ask me twice. Alina opened the door and stepped aside. Where do we start? Natalie asked. Alina pointed to the closet. Clothes, then books, then the drawer he always pretended was mine. They didn't talk much while packing, just moved, folded, taped, filled the silence with the rustle of cardboard and the sound of someone finally choosing herself. At one point, Natalie held up a sweater. Yours. Alina looked, his toss it. Natalie smiled faintly. Nice. They reached the bathroom last. Toothbrush, moisturizer, the perfume she stopped wearing because he said it was too sharp. When it was done, they sat on the edge of the bed, bare mattress, suitcase beside them. Alina exhaled. I kept thinking I needed to cry. You don't, Natalie said. You don't owe him a breakdown, just your absence. Alina nodded. He'll spin it. Let him, Natalie said. People who need applause for treating others, well, don't deserve your defense when they stop. Alina stood, looked around the room. Quiet, hollow, done. Natalie handed her the last box. You ready? For him to call me cold. For everyone to ask what happened. For the silence that comes after escape. No, Natalie said gently, to breathe again. Alina didn't cry, she just smiled. Small, certain, because this wasn't leaving, it was returning, Claire called her. It was 2 days after she left. Alina didn't expect it, hadn't saved the number, didn't even recognize the voice at first. Alina, it's Claire. Silence, then, I hope it's okay I'm calling. Alina said nothing, just waited. Claire cleared her throat. I saw how he spoke to you, at dinner, at the holidays, in front of people who should have said something sooner, including me. Still, Alina said nothing. Claire continued, I used to think it was just his way. That he was intense, passionate, that you two just had different communication styles. Alina finally replied, that's what I told myself too. Claire exhaled, but it wasn't style, it was erasure, I saw it, I ignored it. And I think he learned that from me. Alina didn't expect that. Claire's voice cracked a little. His father used to do the same thing, talk over me, correct me mid-sentence. Win arguments I didn't even know we were having. Alina closed her eyes. Claire said, I let Mark watch that and never showed him what it looked like to stop it. Another pause. I'm not asking for forgiveness, she added. I just wanted you to know that you weren't imagining it, and you weren't too cold, or too logical, or too anything. Alina leaned against the wall. Thank you. Claire whispered, you deserved protection. I found it, Alina said. And this time it didn't sound like a defense. It sounded like truth. He showed up at her job, mid-afternoon, light traffic. She saw him through the glass door before he came in holding nothing, wearing that same look he always wore when he wanted something. Alina, he said like a question. She didn't rise from her desk. You can't be here. He paused. I needed to see you. She folded a sticky note slowly, eyes on her hands. Why? I'll change, he said. I will. Just tell me what you want. She looked up, met his eyes, not with softness, not with spite, just presence. I wanted a partner, she said, not a defendant. He flinched. I'm trying. No, she cut in. You're pleading. There's a difference. He looked around, the office too quiet now, the distance too visible. Can't we just talk? She shook her head. That's what I always tried to do. You argued, you dissected. You demanded apologies for truths I spoke too clearly. He stepped forward. We can fix this. You mean I can walk it back, she said, so you don't have to feel like the one who lost something. He opened his mouth, then closed it. A coworker peeked around the corner. Alina didn't blink. I'm working, she said calmly. Please leave. Mark hesitated, then stepped back. Defeated or maybe just unarmed, he left, and she didn't watch him go. Because she didn't need to. She'd already turned around long before he did. She apologized for apologizing, not to him, to herself. It was late, one of those quiet nights where the only sound was the low hum of a nearby street lamp and the soft scratch of pen on paper. She opened her journal, no prompt, no plan, just wrote, I'm sorry. Paused, then underlined it. I'm sorry for teaching him that my peace was his to pick apart. Another line. Sorry for shrinking to seem reasonable. Sorry for calling survival compromise. Sorry for mistaking his calm for wisdom and mine for ice. She sat back, stared at the page. I kept thinking if I was clearer, he'd listen. If I was softer, he'd stay. If I hurt quietly, it would count for something. She exhaled, then wrote one more line. I won't apologize for being clear again. Close the book, no tears, no grand release. Just stillness, the kind that comes when you finally stop negotiating with a version of yourself that was only ever built to be palatable. She tucked the journal under her pillow, turned off the light, and let herself rest in the apology she finally owed to the woman who never needed fixing. Only freeing. Ray sent flowers, a small white bouquet in a plain glass jar, nothing extravagant, nothing loud. Just enough to fill the room with quiet proof that someone had been watching, had cared. There was a card, folded once, tucked between the stems. Alina opened it carefully. In Ray's handwriting, now it's safe to exhale. No signature, no explanation, just that. She stood there for a moment, reading the line again and again. Safe. It hadn't occurred to her that she'd been holding her breath for months, measuring joy, regulating expression, shrinking every reaction into something he wouldn't label dramatic. She moved to the window, unlatched it, let the breeze in. It wasn't poetic, just air. She inhaled, not carefully, not quietly. Fully. Then she smiled. Not because she was happy, not yet, but because the fear had finally left her body. She looked back at the flowers, touched the edge of the card. Ray didn't need a thank you. She knew, she always had. That survival isn't just leaving the wrong person. It's staying long enough on the other side to realize your softness doesn't have to be sacrificed for peace. It can exist inside it. Mark still doesn't understand. Word gets back through friends, mutuals, that he's telling people she changed, that she turned cold, that she was impossible to please, always distant, too calculated. He tells one friend she was more interested in being right than being kind. Another hears she was never really in it. Someone else says he called her emotionally manipulative, all logic, no heart. Elena hears it all. She doesn't respond, not in texts, not in circles, not in vague posts or shared screenshots. She just lives. She wakes early now, reads before the sun gets loud, eats breakfast slowly, keeps fresh flowers on the table, even when no one visits. She goes to therapy, walks to work, learns how she likes her coffee again without anyone rolling their eyes at the sugar. When friends ask, "What happened with Mark?" she just says, "We grew differently." When pressed, she smiles, not to deflect, but because some truths don't require rehashing. Some wounds don't need witnesses. Some growth doesn't need applause. She's not bitter. She's just busy, rebuilding a life where she doesn't have to translate every word into something softer, quieter, smaller. He can tell any story he wants, because she's not in it anymore. And when you stop feeding someone's version of you, it dies on its own. Someone new asked her a question. They were sitting at the edge of a friend's party, 2 half-empty glasses on the table, music low in the background. Not flirting, not probing, just talking. He leaned back and said, "What happened before all this?" She paused, not from fear, from choice. Then said, "I stopped apologizing for being clear." He nodded, waited, so she continued. "I was in something that looked like love, but only if I said things the right way, if I smiled enough, if I added disclaimers to truth." He didn't interrupt, just listened. She said, "He told people I was cold, but I was just tired of apologizing for not falling apart the way he wanted." The man across from her blinked. "You ever miss it?" She shook her head. "I miss who I tried to be, not him." He smiled gently. "You're not cold." "I know," she said. "I'm just not bending anymore." They sat in silence after that, but it didn't feel heavy, just honest. And later, when she walked home alone, she realized something important. It wasn't about finding someone new. It was about finally hearing her own voice, steady, unfiltered, unapologetic, and recognizing it as home. She didn't flinch, didn't rehearse, didn't explain. She just answered the question. And for the first time in a long time, she was the one who decided what came next. Thank you for watching. Please do not forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I love you all.